And that's precisely the reason why this kind of conversation is one that I'm very used to. And I'm not going to turn around and be like, why are you asking me these questions? You're Al Jazeera. How dare you? What? It's airing right now? Oh, my Al Jazeera interview?
That also does play that same role, though. So as far as like going out and
yeah, they're doing it on the fucking main stage. Okay, we won't watch it here though. We'll watch it in a second. My Al Jazeera interview, Hasan Piker and the Rise of Political Streaming, is airing on Al Jazeera currently, which is pretty cool. But we'll watch it ourselves in a little bit. Was this interview trying to get a gig at the BBC? Why did you get the only pro-Israel guy in the org? I don't know what it was about. It was shockingly contentious. I mentioned it. It was shockingly contentious. But it's all good. I mean, I can play with those things. I can play with interviews like that one. It's not, it is what it is. Where was I? Oh yeah, I was talking about it, but like here it is, obviously. Every single time, Albanians, aliens, Illuminati, Russia, USA. The real puppet master behind everything is always Albania. Shouts out to Albania. The world is Albania. Yeah, the interview was unnecessarily contentious, but I only say unnecessarily contentious because like the Al Jazeera audience, I don't think is going to is going to appreciate it. Why do journalists refuse to ask this guy about actual political matters and just try to do gotcha journalism about his personal life beliefs? Got Al Jazeera sounding like Ross Dow that literally hit all the same notes. Waste of an interview opportunity. I recall Hasan saying that this was surprisingly contentious interview on stream. The line of questioning was comically FBI coded. Like I haven't even watched it yet, and most people that are Jesse Waters grilling Hasan on Al Jazeera wasn't on my 2026 bingo card. The man of the people, for the people. The questioning about him wearing the press vest is weird and unprofessional and also stupid. You want him to get shot in some protest? Bro, treating Hasan wearing a press vest like he's hijacking his only job. But yeah, it's fine. I did notice that like some establishment, like old school journalists are threatened by what I do and what like people like myself do. Not realizing that like I'm not antagonistic to the existence of mainstream media, although I criticize it with regular frequency. I don't even criticize Al Jazeera that much, ironically enough. So it was a little bit unexpected coming from Al Jazeera, being more contentious than like my interviews with like New York Times and numerous other outlets. But I think it's expected. I think it's expected that there are always going to be some people who are like, well, why are you doing what you're doing? Don't you feel like it's playing a role in killing our, it's killing our industry? But let's get started. Let's start here. Let's go and watch Hasan Piker and the Rise of Political Streaming. Like, it doesn't make sense.
He's one of the most influential political voices of our age. Not on television, not in print, but streaming live to millions. Hasan Piker doesn't report the news in the traditional sense. He reacts to it.
Let's take a look at what happened, and I'll give you some more commentary in a second.
He filters journalism in real time for an audience that no longer trusts institutions or the traditional media. To his supporters, he offers an unfiltered alternative. To his critics, he's something far more dangerous, a commentator without guardrails, influence without accountability.
You should remember that we have the numbers.
The 34-year-old American streamer has more viewers than some cable networks, no editor, no newsroom oversight, and yet enormous power to shape opinion, outrage, and belief. In a world where algorithms can replace editors, audience trust replaces verification, and accountability is enforced not by law but by comments, likes, and shares, is it still journalism? From war and misinformation to wealth and ideology to the blurred lines between activism and incitement, this is a conversation about power, responsibility, and the future of who gets to define the truth. Online streamer Hasan Piker talks to Al Jazeera.
Like the thing is like the goal of this interview, as I realized, like, remember, there are different goals with different kinds of interviews, right? the goal on this one was specifically about like independent media and how it's like moving into the territory of mainstream journalism and you know, basically everything that he discussed in the introduction. It gets far less contentious by like the midway point, I think. But um I don't know. I was a little bit confused because it was Al Jazeera, because like I would expect something like this from like CNN or New York Times or anything like that. Ironically enough, they haven't done a contentious interview such as this, but I don't mind it. So I need you guys to also understand that like could there be a more productive conversation to be had about policy, my positions, my worldview, or things that are happening? Yes, but this conversation is not supposed to be centered around that. You understand? Sometimes different aspects of like there can be meta commentary about what I'm doing, and this is one of those conversations. And I think it's good to have this conversation.
Welcome to Talk to Al Jazeera, and a very, very warm welcome to Doha as well. You're talking to us on the sidelines of this web summit.
God, I look so tired. I was so tired at this point. I was so jet lagged. Jet lag was kicking
here
my
in
ass,
Qatar.
dude.
And I think it's fair to say you've spent the last few years pretty much colonizing the media landscape that was traditionally in the hands of mainstream broadcast news networks and other television formats. I think it's fair to say that most of your viewers would not be seen dead getting their news from TV. I mean, you have more people watching you than many major cable news networks do during their prime time hours. But you aren't just a commentator, you're something of a filter as well. You take the work of reporters and you react to it, often in real time. Do you see yourself as a journalist, or do you see yourself as something else, perhaps an algorithm of your generation?
That's an interesting way to approach it. I don't see myself as a journalist. I do sometimes do journalism, I guess, if I go out on the field and do interviews or do live protest coverage and things like that. But beyond that, I just see myself as a commentator, almost like a one-stop, one-person operation. Normally at CNN and all these other outlets, you have a massive news team, you have producers that are gathering all this information ahead of time, feeding talking points to the person who's offering the analysis, and maybe even some other analysts on the desk that are covering, offering color commentary. I just do all of that on my own. It's a one-stop shop.
If you're not a journalist, do you feel that you are perhaps more aware of your innate biases in what you do?
Oh, no, absolutely. It's not only am I aware of it, I also feel as though everyone has innate biases, and I think it's more honest to be upfront about those biases, although sometimes the audience is not so receptive.
Not so receptive or not so respectful as well?
Yeah, definitely. I do maintain a position that is fairly unique in American politics. It's definitely not very broadly represented in mainstream media. Anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist. These are perspectives that are not often understood, and I think people that encounter this kind of opinion usually have a negative association with it. They're heavily propagandized towards this worldview. So there are a lot of haters, yeah.
Being aware of your biases and often being confronted by your apparent biases by your audience, do you think that that's in any way a substitute for accuracy, something that mainstream journalists are beholden to?
I think that constant confrontation keeps me more honest than I feel mainstream reporters would, especially because there's no real-time feedback in mainstream reporting. That confrontation can also turn into content in and of itself, I guess, and can be distracting. But I do feel like that pushback is a good mechanism to keep me honest, keep my analysis
One of those
clear.
examples of pushback was in February 2022 when you told your audience for weeks that Russia was not going to invade Ukraine. Obviously, we all know that did happen. You insisted it was State Department propaganda. But when the tanks rolled in, you did apologize. Do you often get it wrong?
Is your new IG post shadow banned? It only has 10K likes in 50 minutes and not a lot of comments. It's unusually low for your IG pics. It flopped compared to your other posts that aren't reels. I have noties on for your IG post, but it didn't even show on my feed until I went to your page to check. That's the craziest backhand that I've received so far this morning. It flopped. It's bait, right? I feel like this is the guy. This is a guy who just like comes in and says weird shit all the time. You know? I can't tell if this is one of these people that is just like consistently saying stuff in the chat as though it's like positive feedback, or it's just like a parasocial person or something like that. It does weirdly have low interactions in comparison to your other posts. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is. It happens. I really should have stopped unbanning people. No, it's fine. We can have guys like that and we can move on from it. Yeah, you can go like it if you want to boost it in the algorithm. Here, I'll spam it in the chat. Many of you don't have Twitter any longer, but you probably still have Instagram. Here it is. There you go. Go like it. Let's see this get to 20K likes by the end of this minute. There's 24,000 of you in here. I want to see 1 like per person. Okay, there it is. This is the post. I said, solidarity is the closest expression I've felt to love. I hope everyone had a wonderful Valentine's Day. Do your part. Not liking until you post more, totally not dick pics. To be honest, as someone who has notice on, it's doing regularly well. Chowder's just being extremely parasocial and a hater, though. I mean, I don't know. I don't really care. All right, let's move on. Keep juicing
no, but when I do get it wrong, especially because I'm getting it wrong that in a way that is not in line with the State Department propaganda, if you will, that's something that people never let go of. And it's really interesting because, like I say all the time, mainstream media or people that do this professionally in line with the State Department will almost professionally get things wrong with regular frequency, but they're never really punished for it. It's never really brought up ever again, and it's actually quite helpful for their careers, like whether it be the coverage in Israel from a lot of mainstream commentary folks, or whether it be no one really getting punished for lying at the behest of the American State Department to go and occupy Iraq.
Are you talking specifically about the United States here? Because there'll be many
Yes.
mainstream journalists around the world thinking, hang on a minute. First and foremost, before we're even allowed to
Is
write
this interviewer
our first
usually
report,
good? I don't know. I don't know this interviewer at all, but it's all good.
we have to study the law. We have to avoid defaming our network or our company that we're happen to be working for. You're saying something is distinctly different, distinctly rotten about the American media landscape.
I wouldn't say it's just the American media landscape. I think it's more so Western media in general, but there are brilliant journalists that work in all of these outlets that I'm speaking of as well. Some of them I know intimately. And I'm mostly talking about it's a more broader criticism, I guess, where all the way from the BBC, Guardian to CNN and the New York Times, I think these last 2 years of coverage around Israel's genocide in Gaza has made it almost impossible not to notice that there is definitely a bias in the broader reporting in general that often corresponds to America's interest in any region, really.
You say you're not a journalist, but you have been accused by your critics of wrongly wearing a blue press vest while reporting out on the field on several occasions. Not just you, several other streamers. Wearing that blue vest that says press enables you to get to places where the majority of the public cannot get. But with that accolade of wearing that vest, it gives you a certain sense of professional responsibility when you are there. When you make a mistake wearing that vest, do you feel that you can easily retreat back to the position of being...
Yeah, he hit me with the stolen valor, which was really funny. It's like, I mean, you'll see.
A streamer as opposed to as a journalist? A member of the press?
No, I think, well, first of all, I usually wear it so I don't get shot at. And it does increasingly feel like when we're doing protest coverage in America, it almost comes across like a target, more so than a way to avoid ricocheting 40 millimeter rounds. But I do bear that responsibility. I carry that responsibility with my regular commentary as well.
I mean, some would say you're gaming the system by presenting yourself as a bona fide member of the press, while at the same time being something other than a journalist.
I think in this day and age, with the way that the media has evolved, there is a lot of real-time coverage people are offering that also does play that same role, though. So as far as like going out into protest coverage and doing protest coverage in general, I think that is still operating in a similar capacity to what the press would do. The main difference, I would say, in my coverage when I do protest coverage in general is the fact that I make an effort not to be behind the police line, because usually a lot of mainstream reporters stay behind the police line, and I think that impacts the way that they cover these sorts of incidents that are taking place, whereas I try to stay inside of the crowd.
Let me ask you a personal question. It's perhaps another one of the criticisms leveled at you by your many, many critics. Of course, you have many, many supporters and indeed fans as well.
I think this is like where it starts changing. The vibes of the interview start shifting back to like a more positive one, I guess.
It's to do with your personal wealth. It's been focused upon.
But again, guys, you can't get so fucking mad at like random reporters asking questions like this. Okay, it doesn't matter, because guess what? Your job as an interviewer is to have a productive conversation. Do I think it would have been a more productive conversation if we're talking about, like, I don't know, the role that independent media has, without it turning into like a, oh, well, you do this, you do that type of like gotcha journalism? It doesn't matter. I can handle it. I'm a fucking big boy. You know what I mean? These are questions and cynical frameworks that I've operated within my entire career. Okay? That's it. I think it stems from a misunderstanding of what I do, or what my commentary looks like, or what my opinion is around mainstream reporting in general, because there is definitely a layer of antagonism between people like myself and independent news versus mainstream reporting. Like a lot of people think, oh, these guys are illegitimate. They are constantly eating off of the lack of credibility that mainstream reporters have nowadays. And they're driving an even bigger wedge between the public and their news consumption coming from legacy publishers. I'm not one of those people at all. Although media literacy is a big part of my coverage, I'm very critical of mainstream reporting. I still understand its importance, and I still ride for it pretty aggressively. So I think the reason why there is this level of like antagonism in the reason why it's like contentious is because he slots me in with a lot of these like right-wing guys, like, you know, the anti-vaxxers and people like that, who are always talking about like, oh, mainstream media lies to you. Mainstream media is a liar. It's fucking lying all the time. I hate mainstream media. Listen to me instead. I made up this news story in my head. Right? It's ironic coming from Al-Jazeera, having said that, because Al-Jazeera is, as a media institution, very familiar with my coverage. I regularly talk to journalists there, producers there. They talk about how it's awesome that I'm constantly highlighting the role that they play, especially when it comes to their Gaza coverage, you know. But in any case, let's continue.
You're a millionaire living in a West Hollywood mansion, apparently preaching Marxism. The word grifter comes up a lot. Does that sting?
No. I think it's a misunderstanding of the way that people approach the subject. It's not, I mean, it's something I hear all the time. I try to maintain my ethics in the way that I run I guess, this entire operation. I run a cooperative corporation, equal say, equal pay. And outside of that, you know, I'm not pushing any like unethical advertising or anything of that nature. I don't run ads any longer. I used to have a contract with Amazon back when they used to offer contracts. You have to play ball with these guys if you want to do any sort of political commentary, especially political commentary that might be a little bit more on the radical side. But once my contract was over, I stopped running ads. The only revenue stream that comes in is voluntary subscriptions. If they don't want to subscribe, they don't have to. There's no real benefits to subscribing beyond just supporting the broadcast. So in that regard, I you know,
Piker Broadcasting Service, baby. Sponsored by you, the viewers, for you, the viewers. Subscribe if you would like to support the show. Piker Broadcasting Service, for you, the people, by you, the people. Piker Broadcasting Service, subscribe to learn about tomorrow's news today. Yeah, he's basically, the question here is like, well, they call you a grifter because you're successful. And my retort is, well, my product is free. You know, my product is free and it's supported entirely by voluntary subscriptions. There's not really much more I can do in that situation.
Live streaming tomorrow, I would not have a revenue funnel.
Take 5 minutes off.
It's just
stop spamming. You need to play gaming. Okay, it's starting to get annoying.
The broadcast. So in that regard, I you know, if I stopped live streaming tomorrow, I would not have a revenue funnel. It's just, in this day and age, I think it's the most like sustainable and the most ethical way of doing this.
You once said, I'd rather be a rich socialist than a broke boy defending capitalism. What do you mean by that?
You're hitting me on my greatest hits here. What I meant by that is that I feel like a lot of people that don't benefit from the current economic organization of society have this false notion that if they defend capitalism, despite not benefiting from it whatsoever, that they'll eventually become a millionaire or billionaire one day. And I'd rather be a class trader and try to present an alternative that is more beneficial for and more egalitarian for as many people as possible than to be someone who doesn't benefit from capitalism and still defends it.
At what point does your very expensive home stop being a basic human necessity and something that essentially reinforces the very system that you're critiquing?
I don't think the purchases that you make necessarily, I mean, if you're buying a private jet, it's a little different, but I don't think the purchases that you make, as long as you're not using it to engage in capital accumulation, imply, you know, something less ethical than whatever purchase you're making in general. I have a house. The reason why it's so expensive is because it's in West Hollywood. I bought a house for myself and my family, and it's a very normal house. It just happens to be in West Hollywood, which is why it's so expensive.
Going back to one of your other favorite hits, you also said,
yeah, it's like you bought a house, socialism, but big house. How dare you? Is just a question that I think I'm going to have to answer for the rest of my life. It's unfortunately a very, very common question. I guess like the only way to approach it is like fast. The only way to approach it and counter is just be like, would I be a better socialist if I was renting from a landlord down the street rather than owning my own home? No. This is why the price of the house is utterly unnecessary in this conversation. The problem is, even when you respond to it, people will still go, oh, he's defensive because he knows we got him, right? It's completely irrelevant. It's expensive. You know, the Soviet bloc had the Soviet bloc, former Soviet states have 90+% home ownership rates. China has a massive home ownership rate. It's my personal property. It's not private property. I'm not engaging in capital accumulation off of home ownership. I'm not shutting off other people's access to home ownership this way. That's all this is, you know? I could buy a bigger one. Yeah, I'm going to start saying that. You got to start including that you run your whole operation out of your home. Many people pay thousands to rent a studio. I mean, yeah. Ultimately, the question itself is kind of silly.
Don't be mad at me, just tax people like me. Can you explain that?
I mean, that's another classic. As far as the way haters present certain arguments, I always tell them, look, if you hate me, you know, make sure that I pay more, a larger share in taxes.
It comes across as being quite a passive thing to say for somebody who appears to be, at least on the surface, a radical.
Well, I think I have more radical perspectives as well, but this is something within the confines of permissibility, I think, in America. Except sometimes I go back on that. I don't know if that's even possible. I feel like even modest social democracy seems like a lifetime away in America.
If we could talk about the logic of what you do and more about the detractors as well, because you're extremely good at defending the point of view that you come from. You're almost sort of bulletproof in that respect. I'm very curious to see where your journey started and where it led and why you now do what you do. I want to talk about your recent visit to China, because you appeared on state TV, you live streamed on Tiananmen Square holding a Chinese flag. Whatever your thoughts are on China, you must have known that was going to be a red rag to a bull for some voices and viewers in the United States. So why did you do it?
Well, I have been fascinated with China for a very long time, and it was actually awesome to be able to go out and see it, because it's something that I've talked about quite a bit. It's no different than coming to Doha as well, where analysis is one thing, but then going out and experiencing is an entirely different thing. And for me, the China experience, the China trip, was almost proof of like all of these things that I have been talking about for so long. That this wasn't the hermit kingdom that DPRK style presentation that like Americans are used to, and that it was actually growing tremendously at a rapid rate, and was in many ways even more modern than the United States of America is, like the trajectory of China, as opposed to the trajectory of the country that I wish would do better. But as far as all the criticisms goes, I mean, it doesn't matter if I go to Tiananmen Square or not. People are always going to be critical because I went to China.
Is there a fine line, though, between cutting through Western preconceptions of China, American preconceptions of China, and potentially platforming a controversial nation state?
I don't think you can platform a controversial nation state. I mean, I guess there's like differences. I wouldn't.
He said, "Why are you platforming China, the manufacturing base of the planet, with 1.4 billion population?"
Go to Israel, for example, but I don't consider China to be in the same wavelength of, or same magnitude of cruelty that Israel is.
Do you think the Uyghurs, the Tibetans, the Taiwanese would agree with that?
Well, I don't think the Taiwanese are even remotely comparable to what has happened to the Gazans. And yeah, that's actually one area that I'm very critical of China on. And I feel as though if Benjamin Netanyahu's treatment of the Palestinians resembled the Xinjiang policies, which were horrifying, dragnets, mass surveillance, and camps as well, like re-education camps in general. If this was the Israeli policy over the Palestinians, who then would have full-blown citizenship in the aftermath of this process, I think the Western world would consider Benjamin Netanyahu to be the most peaceful leader of all time. So I think that while the Chinese system, the Chinese control over Xinjiang, or the apprehension methods used, were completely unethical and against my principles, something that I've criticized over and over again, in comparison to Israel's genocide, it's still not even on the same wavelength.
Talking about detractors, you famously debated.
You said this was a less adversarial part of the interview. I mean, I don't know. I don't really remember it. It was all a blur for me. I had just got, I was insanely jet lagged. But I mean, I think it's a productive interview. I'm laying out my positions in a relatively contentious interview. You guys don't get enough debates, right? There is a lot of appetite for debates, it seems. right? So there you go. There's some
the
debate for
Chinese
you.
control over Xinjiang, Israel's genocide. It's still.
Let me see what the comments are saying. Jesse Waters grilling us on Al Jazeera. Why do journalists refuse to ask this guy? Feels like this was a gotcha interview at times. Missed opportunity. Expected much better from Al Jazeera. Hasan gets away with his commentary in the U.S. because he's not beholden to corporate media. There have always been people like Hasan who maintain a critical analysis, but their voices were hidden because of the stronghold of corporate media. He occupies a space that he carved out himself. Hasan has boosted Al Jazeera reporting on the genocide for years now, and instead of talking about the ongoing suffering or American policies of the files, he's asking questions he's answered 1,000 times. It's not journalism, it's political commentary, and frankly, Hasan's very good at it. The fact that he just goes on 8 hours a day as a stream of consciousness, his skill is still very uncomfortable to think about what happens if real journalism fades. Hasan, brother, I promise you that 95% of us do not want debates. I don't mind having a contentious conversation. I don't mind having a contentious conversation where I answer these sorts of questions, especially because it's like packaged in one easy to access way like this. Instead of debating, it's you just crushing his what about this framing. Yeah, and I especially because like I'm not a baby. I'm 34 years old, and I think I am dealing with this fairly well.
Obviously debated the right-wing activist Charlie Kirk, assassinated, of course, in September last year. I mean, love him or loathe him, he believed, apparently, in what he was saying. What do you make of him and what has come from his killing in terms of MAGA America, Trump's United States?
I mean, I'm not shy about saying that I loathe the guy. I've known him for many, many years, and yeah, I was supposed to debate him 2 weeks before his assassination, 2 weeks after his assassination. I think initially I was very worried that the government was going to use Charlie Kirk's assassination as a point of martyrdom, and then and engage in heavy-handed repression. And they signaled that they were going to do that, but. I feel as though the tide shift has been so dramatic, and now, I mean, Charlie Kirk memes have exploded on the internet. The forced reverence that the administration expected, or the forced reverence that they wanted everyone to engage in, completely backfired on them. It was shocking even for someone like myself, seeing how much people openly now not only criticize Charlie Kirk, but even make fun of his legacy. As far as the administration,
like you know what it is? It reminds me of the conversation that I had with Ross Douthat, which people fucking loved, right? Because Ross Douthat is a right-wing broadcaster on a liberal newspaper, New York Times. So the audience seeing me match up against Ross Douthat, who was consistently trying to like talk about how much of a dangerous, violent radical I was, actually ended up backfiring on Ross Douthat, and it caused people that I never would have expected to watch that interview and go, "Oh, this guy's fucking awesome." And I think this plays a similar role as well, where the Al Jazeera audience is going to watch this and go, and their takeaway is not going to be like, "Oh, Hasan is a bad guy. He's silly. He's stupid." They're going to be like, "Wow, this was an unnecessarily contentious interview about a guy who I think handled himself quite well in this sequence of, in this sequence, this barrage of contentious questions."
administration, like where they take it from here, that was a failure because of their heavy-handed approach. I think they went after Jimmy Kimmel and demanded censorship.
Yep, your haters help me see you as shockingly normal. That's the thing. Like, as long as I hold my own, as long as I'm able to maintain a balanced approach in my conversation, automatically I think the other person that is seemingly rage baiting it's not a very professional term to use, but it's one that you can use here. It's apt. As long as I hold my own here, it doesn't make me look bad at all.
By using one of the federal regulatory agencies, and that I think was a bridge too far for many liberals and even many independents as well, where they were like, no, this is unacceptable, and they had to they had to respond to that public backlash and that public pressure and backed away from it. I think the other story with Charlie Kirk's assassination is also the misinformation that flies around. Candace Owens very quickly came out. The administration had one goal, I think. They wanted to turn this into an anti-fascist action to punish the entirety of the political left. They obviously failed to do so, but Candace Owens, also being one of the most significant right-wing figures in the country, very quickly shifted the blame over to Israel. And that was another very interesting moment. From my perspective, I could not comprehend how many people would get on board with that very quickly.
You're conflating two things. Yes, you don't look bad, but no, this is not a productive conversation. It doesn't matter. Productivity that comes out of this conversation, I think, is when people who are uninitiated with me will watch this and go, ooh, this guy is holding his feet to the fire. And then they will watch it and go, actually, he held his own quite well. He is helping you speak for yourself to the public. They interview most people this way. Yeah, I've never seen the talk to Al Jazeera segment, and I don't know if this is how it always is, but you know, keeping myself low cortisol throughout this entire process is a good thing.
To me, that means that like Israel's approvals were so low that people were willing to, without much evidence, immediately assume that Israel had a hand in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And that made it virtually impossible for Trump and the administration to continue claiming that this was like an anti-fascist action.
Hasan, let me ask you about this, because you were recently...
Yeah, and the off camera, we were very cordial. He was super nice in the beginning of the conversation. He was super nice in the aftermath of the conversation too.
Suspended from Twitch. Mm-hmm. 7th ban, is that right?
Shower arguments IRL, yes, literally. That's you're not wrong. That is actually exactly what this is. And if you remember, like a similar thing happened with the BBC with Ben Shapiro. And Ben Shapiro lost his fucking composure and instantly started yelling at a journalist who is a far-right figure in British news because he was not used to getting pushback. My whole life is fucking pushback, from random gray names on the internet to like the entire commentary sphere. And that's precisely the reason why this kind of conversation is one that I'm very used to. And I'm not going to turn around and be like, why are you asking me these questions? You're Al Jazeera. How dare you? How dare you ask me such questions? Because I don't have such a fucking high view of myself. Okay? That's what it is. And I think a lot of right-wingers are comfortable and bubbled in their echo chambers. So when they like leave their echo chambers, they can't comprehend when they think that they're actually going to to an interview that is going to keep it as professional and as non-contentious as possible, they lose their composure, right?
Right?
Yes.
Suspended from Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
7th ban, is that right?
Yes.
What happened?
So last year, the ADL,
the Anti-Defamation League.
The Anti-Defamation League, or the Apartheid Defense League, as I like to call them, created a rule specifically around me and maybe a couple other content creators on the platform. They forced Twitch to make Zionist, a political ideology that I find to be very racist and very violent, into a protected category by claiming that Zionist was a substitute term for Jewish. Although this is not the case, of course. You could still criticize Zionism, but you were not allowed to say Zionist, insert whatever, animal name as an example. I, of course, did do that when I was talking about the anti-ICE and anti-Israel domestic terror watch list that the Department of Homeland Security had created. And I said, anyone who's defending this is an ultra-Zionist pig. And that was reason enough for Twitch to ban me for 7 days.
I mean, Twitch would argue that it's got some pretty clear hate speech policies. Is there any part of you that recognizes that this revolutionary optimism, I think you've called it previously, might sound a bit like a kind of form of incitement for particularly young, impressionable viewers?
Revolutionary optimism? No, I don't think that's incitement of violence of any kind. But if you're asking me about terms of service in terms of hate speech, I do think that terms of service should exist, and Twitch is pretty rigorous when it comes to applying its terms of service, unlike many other social media platforms. Having said that, there are instances where that can be abused, and I do think that the Zionist as a protected identity thing is totally ridiculous.
What does it mean to not be on Twitch anymore? Do you intend to fight your case? I mean, you're losing quite an important platform.
No, I'm back already. So
You're back
I got
already,
banned.
okay.
So I got banned for 7 days, and then I knocked it down to 3. I did like a course.
A course?
To
Like a driving ban course?
Yeah, pretty much.
Right, what does that mean, briefly?
Just you go through and figure out what is determined as hate speech and what's not.
And that's it, you pass the test, you're back on.
Yeah.
You recently praised the, quote, propaganda of the deed following all that political violence we've seen in the United States. You seem to be flirting with the idea.
So this was the only part of his statement that was like objectively wrong, because I'm very anti-adventurism, and that like throughout the entire thing, like it's contentious and whatnot, but like the one, like he's not wrong when he says like you said Russia would never invade Ukraine. He's right. I did say that, right? But I did not actually praise the propaganda of the deed. I'm not an anarchist, so this is the only time where I go, wait a minute, nope, that's not true. Look at my face when he says that.
Following all that political violence we've seen in the United States, you seem to be flirting with the idea that the very system is so broken that it needs to be dismantled by any means, it
No,
appears.
I make a point to make sure that I don't believe in adventurism. So as far as talking about like Luigi Mangioni's actions and whatnot, I'm more invested in understanding why this is not as considered as controversial in a country like America, where something like that normally would immediately cause people to go, this is unacceptable. But as far as like praising the propaganda of the deed, I don't agree with.
But if your kind of form of education leads to those kind of deeds, are you prepared?
Why do you publicly support clavicular when he openly says the N-word on a regular basis? Because I'm a racist. Duh.
To
Publicly support clavicular is so funny. Yeah, me, famously big supporter of clavicular. Anyway, false. You are wrong because crusty anarchists are right and chaos should be embraced for the poop sock for everybody. Okay, you got it. Yeah. Yes, it's because I'm a PSL 7, and as a true atom, I always have to praise those who are on the journey of ascension, even if they're low tier normies.
But if your kind of form of education leads to those kind of deeds, are you prepared to take responsibility for it, or will you sit behind your screen and watch the numbers go up?
I think as far as, I do want to stress that. That's the only, I do want to stress that I am not in favor of decentralized violence. I think militancy and organizing is something entirely different, but I don't believe in like random acts of violence.
Does being a revolutionary always require people to be provocateurs?
Yes and no, I guess. I don't intend to provoke. I intend to wake people up to the realities that they're experiencing, because I think a lot of people experience, they go through the daily struggles of everyday existence, and they don't necessarily understand who's responsible for this or what the system's design looks like, and they end up showcasing their anger towards marginalized identities, marginalized groups in general. They assume that it's undocumented migrants or trans people that are responsible for why why their expectations of what their lives are supposed to look like did not actually meet reality. When in fact, I think it's the systems design that they're struggling, and I try to refocus people's efforts into a more productive avenue that way. But as far as revolutionary action goes, I mean, I'm in favor of changing the system, but I don't shy away from.
Interviewer kind of had a point on that revolution question. I mean, yeah. When those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent retribution inevitable, right? So I'm in favor of exhausting all peaceful options in order to yield a more egalitarian outcome. That's always what my advocacy revolves around, okay? But once it gets to a point of self-defense, like, I mean, at that point, we have to shift the blame over to the oppressive constructs.
I'm working with active political parties. I'm not, like, I want the most peaceful methods to be exhausted to the best of my ability.
A couple of final questions. Where do you see the likes of you and I in about 10 years' time? The broadcast journalists and the so-called newsfluencer. Are we essentially on the same page, or do we diverge in a path where we will never meet?
Well, I always bring this up, but I think, I mean, news media is a profoundly important part of what I do. If it wasn't for real journalism, I have no idea what's going on the ground, right? Like I don't have journalists going out in the conflict zones, so it's a symbiotic relationship. So I want professional journalism and mainstream news to continue doing good journalism. I see that, especially in a more holistic way. I think it's very important for there to be credible mainstream outlets, which is why I respect Al-Jazeera so much, and even offer credit where credit is due to the likes of the New York Times and CNN and numerous other outlets as well. I wouldn't exist without mainstream news. I would not be able to do what I'm doing without it. Otherwise, I would not be informed about what's going on.
You come across as being incredibly informed, and we're in a kind of circular kind of relationship where we depend on you and you depend on us. But very, very lastly, I want to ask you what you think from your...
I guess this is the part where he was nice by the end of the interview. This is the part where he was nice. He's like, you come across incredibly informed, and you appreciate what we do.
Privileged position. What's in store in Trump's America?
Oof. A lot more pain and destruction, I think. We're getting to a dangerous place of instability in America. I think that the liberal international order is collapsing in ways that aren't dissimilar to how liberalism collapsed 100 years ago. And I think Trump has recognized that, and he's transforming American politics in a fascist direction. And I really worry about what that future looks like, especially considering that now there's no communist counterbalance, really. I mean, China is nowhere as militant as the USSR was historically, especially against combating fascism. And also America has nuclear arms and 800 military bases around the planet. So what American fascism looks like, I don't think we've ever encountered. And I don't know what that's going to look like at all. So I want to avoid that reality, and I want to organize to the best of my ability to ensure that that reality doesn't come to fruition.
All right, Hasan.
China's not communist with 800 billionaires. You got it. Yes. Real communism hasn't been established. You're going to do it, though. You're going to do the perfect transitional socialist state one day. Okay?
Piker, thanks for talking to Al Jazeera.
Of course, thanks for having me.
So that was it. And seemingly people were upset with how contentious it was, but most of the interview was pretty basic, which is whatever, but I'm disappointed Al Jazeera asked questions that sound like they were curated from Reddit. I did like the discussion about the interaction between journalism and commentary. There's no way the dude brought back the Russia invading thing. Oh, you talk about getting things on. Here's an example from over 3 years ago. This guy streams every day. Why America hate Hasan when Hasan donates? It's not enough / performative. If he doesn't donate, then he really doesn't care. Performative. If he does go to a protest, it's to get attention and performative. If he streams about it, then he's avoiding the real world / performative. If he has experts on to talk about, he's LARPing as a journalist. Performative. If he gives speeches about it, then it's for clout and performative. If he goes to other podcasts, then it's also for clout and performative. Gee, guys, I'm starting to think it's not about his actual actions. Yes. I'm glad that he's getting it. He's platforming China, lol. Yeah, I was tea drinking performatively in China. I think this guy was just misinformed. He posted a ton of people like Giannis. I don't think the guy was trying to do. I think he was just trying to ask the questions that comprehensively covered like a lot of avenues, a lot of angles of attack, a lot of avenues of attack, and that's all it is. But his questions were all, the bullshit gets amplified by your haters, so stated. Still a good interview overall. Yes.